This is Pete Jones, and you are listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. Episode 3, Settings and Conversions. This episode I thought I'd do something a bit different. Instead of doing a review, I'm going to talk about how to take a setting from one system and convert it to another system. It's a question that often comes up in forums and in groups, and it's something that has a lot of pitfalls. So today I'm going to look at how you can do it, how you can make it easy for yourself, some of the pitfalls that people fall into, and the tips that I've learnt from doing it. About 2 years ago, I ran a Pathfinder Rise of the Runelords adventure module, but instead of running it in Pathfinder, I ran it in Savage Worlds. And I learnt a lot from that. I spent a lot of time trying to convert it piecemeal over, and it was a lot of hard work. And by the end of several sessions, I was exhausted. Currently, I'm running a Flash Gordon campaign setting, which was designed for Savage Worlds, but I'm running it in Ubiquity RPG, using the Hollow Earth Expedition rules. And what I learned from before has made it a lot easier to convert this system over. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I do when I'm doing a conversion. Let's get one thing out of the way from the start. If you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, play Dungeons and Dragons. You can't play Dungeons and Dragons in Fate and expect the same experience. So whatever you want to do, pick your system, and that is the system you are going to play. Try not to change any of the mechanics from your core system. Just because the setting you are using uses a special mechanic, don't try and shoehorn into your system. Look at what you've already got and see if you can adapt it. The other thing I learned was, when converting an NPC or a monster, try not to convert it one for one. By that I mean, don't look at its attributes and try and work out the attributes from the new system. Look at the skills, try to match up every single one of the skills, the old system to the new system. Don't look at abilities and try and shoehorn them in. Look at the flavour that person or character gives. And then using the rules you've got, see how you can recreate it best. Sometimes it's just as easy as taking an NPC or monster from the rules you're using and changing the name and changing the description, but keep all the stats the same. For example, take an elephant, rename it, give it a different description, but keep all its stats. Or if you do need to change the stats, just look at, do you need to alter the hit dice? Do you need more attacks? Do you need less attacks? Most of the time, your players won't know the stats you're using. Only you, the GM, will know. For NPCs, to convert them over, first of all, in the host system, look at the stats for a common man, a common human being. For example, in Savage Worlds, it's D6 across the board. That is your average. Then look at the system you're converting to and look at the stats for that. So once you've got those two, that's your baseline. And when you're using the host rules, you find a stronger character, then you can alter it in the system you want to play in. Don't overcomplicate it. If somebody needs a special ability or special move, then just create it on the fly. It doesn't even have to have any mechanic, but just say some cool stuff about it will give the players an idea of what that person does. And my big tip, which I learned from Savage Worlds, is use trappings. What are trappings? Trappings are descriptions. So, for example, if you want to change currencies, keep the same denominations, but just rename it. Instead of having dollars, call it gold coins. Same with weapons. Keep the weapons in your core system, and if need be, just change the name of them. So a pistol suddenly becomes a ray gun. That's a nice simple one. It's just a matter of looking through your equipment list and changing the names and keeping the stats the same. People won't know any different. Same with monsters. Take a monster from your system and rename it. So, you want a large carnivorous creature? Look at the T-Rex in your system and just rename it. Very handy is taking giant versions of creatures. So things like giant lizards, giant crabs, giant spiders. Those are great for reskinning. Just change the name, and most of the time all you have to do is alter the attacks or alter the descriptions. The players don't know that they're really fighting a giant crab. As far as they're concerned, they're fighting a completely different creature. Another good tip is look for monsters or beasts of a similar size. So your bread and butter stuff is things like bats, bears, cats, eagles, elephants, tigers, lions and wolves. So look at one of those and look at the creature you want to create and compare it to one of them. And then it's just a matter of adding a little bit in here, a little bit there, taking a bit out here, taking a bit out there, and Bob's your uncle. Also, look at your special abilities in the system you're using and see how that can help you to give flavour to a monster or character. Also, compare similar items. As I've said before, weapons is the core one, so a dagger in one system to a dagger in another. Same with armour. Look at armour in one system and armour in another, and it gives you a baseline for doing any alterations. And the last thing about setting conversion is character creation. Decide, as the GM, what roles or classes you want in that setting that gives it a real flavour of the setting. Do you want knights? Do you want adventurers? Do you want different types of races? For example, in my Flash Gordon setting, you've got to have hawkmen, sharks, sharkmen, lionmen. Athletes is another one, your Flash Gordon, scientists. So pick the roles and classes that best describe that system and give it the feeling. It may be that the system you're using already has those classes. If not, pick something similar and rename it. You don't have to go into a lot of detail. As long as it feels like that class, everybody will be happy. So a fighter in one system can be an adventure in another system. Your magic user can be a mystic. Your cleric can be a religious person. Keep it simple. What I'm really saying is, don't make it work for yourself. Keep it as simple as you can. Most of the time, just the descriptions will make it feel like the setting. So if anybody out there has got any other tips of how they do setting conversions, I'd be interested to hear them. That's all for now. You've been listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. You can contact me by leaving a message via the Anchor app or visit the podcast website, petejones.neocities.org, or on OSR Anchorites at the Audio Dungeon Discord. Thanks for listening. The opening music is Siesta by Jazar. The closing music is Controlled Distress by BizBaz Studio.